Okay, thank you to everyone joining us today across the country and around the world. I'm Karen Salmon, CEO of Conscious Capitalism. On behalf of the CCI team, we appreciate you taking the time to learn and grow in community with us today. Today, we are excited to be sharing the space with Steve Hall and Jerry Colonna. As many of you know, Conscious Capitalism is a global community of CEOs, presidents, founders, board members, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from diverse industries and background and perspectives who are committed to the shared purpose of elevating humanity through business. Founded in 2008 as a 501c3, Conscious Capitalism provides our community with active operating leaders a platform to share practical advice and tools on how our principles are integrated into different organizations and within various industries. Our community of conscious capitalists offers the best practices and business strategies on how the philosophy is applied to create sustainable success within one's business, leading to systemic change and impact in the world. Several times a month, Conscious Capitalism offers virtual gatherings like this one as a way for our community to see how this philosophy takes shape in the leadership journey and the business practices of those in our network. Today's gathering will run for about 45 minutes, and Jerry and Steve will be in conversation for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll transition to audience questions during the last 10 to 15 minutes of our session. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions that may come up through the session, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can during our time together. At this point, I'm going to introduce both Jerry and Steve. We say that we want to create a more conscious world where everyone can flourish with a sense of belonging, but what does that really mean? We each individually and collectively willing to ensure that becomes a reality for all humanity. In reunion with leadership and the longing to belong, author Jerry Colonna encourages conscious leaders to ask themselves questions like these in order to deeply consider our complicity in the systems of the world we say we want to change. Through radical self-inquiry, recognition of our ancestral histories and tendencies to revert to traditional leadership behaviors, and a willingness to give up what no longer serves our higher selves and the communities with which we foster, we can create new systems to which we feel we belong, truly elevating humanity through our businesses. Jerry will share his insights and practical advice to support conscious leaders in creating an inclusive and welcoming workspace, discover the best of who we are, and nurture and support those whom we are privileged to lead. Now I'm excited to introduce Jerry and Steve. Steve Hall. Over the last 2 decades, Steve has served as founder, CEO, board member of automotive technology, finance, retail, and wholesale organizations ranging from startup to over $2 billion in revenue. Steve is the founder and CEO of Driver Select, a national discount retailer which was sold in 2017 to the Sonic Automotive Group, where he led integration and rollout of the Echo Park business unit to over $1 billion in sales. The business model was based on the principles of conscious capitalism with a purpose of reimagining how people would experience the workplace while serving as an exemplar for how business can scale and achieve sustainable profits well above the market through a culture of care. Caring acts randomly expressed that focus on creating value for each stakeholder in order to generate unprecedented levels of loyalty, engagement, and creativity from employees, suppliers, customers, and local communities. Steve is also, I have to let everyone know, that Steve is on the board of Conscious Capitalism. He is the chair of our executive committee, and today he enjoys life with his wife, Joy, and raising 3 boys, while also serving as CEO of Generosity Ventures and expanding the impact of his foundation, the Make It Matter Foundation, based in Dallas, Texas. Both organizations serve as a model for how generosity can create successful outcomes in both business and not-for-profit endeavors by operating with an abundance mindset, investing in people development, and operating with a long-term horizon. Jerry Colonna, co-founder of Reboot and author. Jerry Colonna is a leading executive coach who uses the skills he learned as a venture capitalist to help entrepreneurs. He's the co-founder and CEO of Reboot, the executive coaching and leadership development company, host of the Reboot podcast, and author of Reboot Leadership and the Art of Growing Up, which he published in 2019, and his newest book, Reunion Leadership and the Longing to Belong, which is just out last month and is a bestseller. He draws on his wide variety of experiences to help clients design a more conscious life and make needed changes to their career to improve their performance and satisfaction. Previously, he was a partner with JP Morgan Partners, the private equity arm of JP Morgan Chase. He joined JP Morgan Partners from Flatiron Partners, which he launched in 1996 with partner Fred Wilson. Flatiron became one of the most successful early stage investment programs in the New York City area. He currently lives on a farm in Longmont, Colorado. I will turn it over to the two of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. And gosh, what a gift it is, Jerry, to have your voice in the conscious capitalism community. I think it's a gift to me personally, just with my own journey in conscious capitalism, knowing that it represents four tenets. Conscious capitalism is about conscious leadership, conscious culture, stakeholder orientation, and operating with a higher purpose. And the work that you're doing in the world matters so much to our organization, because I think when I look at conscious capitalism, I think it's extremely hard to practice and implement conscious capitalism without conscious leadership. It takes conscious leadership to be able to align your organization with a higher purpose, to build a high performance culture, to be able to execute a strong stakeholder orientation. And when I think of conscious leadership, things like high levels of self-awareness, vulnerability, humility, patience, love and understanding, care, these are all come out. And I think there's very few places where you'll find more of this than in the stories that you tend to tell. And in fact, I was listening to a recent podcast with you where you actually introduced yourself and described yourself as a holder of stories from the heart. And I'm curious, why is it that you chose to describe yourself as a holder of stories from the heart? And how is being a holder of those stories having an impact on conscious leaders?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for hosting me. And more important, I want to say I feel like I found my peeps. This is the space where I feel like I can blossom. So much of us in the world of business grapple with what I consider to be a false dichotomy. Can you actually create a sustainable, repeatable, profitable business while doing good in the world? And my answer tends to be, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do both. So I just want to say thank you for hosting. Thank you for that introduction. It means the world to me. And boy, that question. So in 2008, I went on a vision quest. And before anybody asks, no, I did not do any drugs. There was nothing illegal or legal involved other than a little fasting and a lot of solitude. And it was at a critical juncture in my life, my own journey to a consciousness, in which I was trying to really sort through what had happened in the past and who I am now, and more important, who I'm becoming. And as is often the case in those kinds of experiences, 4 days alone in the desert, I received, if you will, a name. And the name was Holder of Stories of the Heart. And as much as it's a name describing the way I used to be, it is actually a prescription for how I should be. And so, Steve, I have a little bit of a reputation where I sort of engage with somebody and within 3 or 4 minutes they start crying. So be careful. Um, but I think what that really speaks to is I actually listen to people. And I will assert that one of the most critically important skills, whether it's of a leader, someone who holds power, or quite frankly, simply being an adult, it's the capacity for whole body listening, whole body presence. And we'll end up getting there. But what's sorely lacking in the world right now is our ability to hear each other's stories and hold them. So, long-winded response to your question, but a lovely question. Thank you.
I'm appreciating your willingness to just be present. I think that's one of the things I struggle with the most. So I'll give you, I appreciate how you always allow yourself to be cooked in your conversations. You're not trying to be the chef and cook other people. You're saying that I'm going to jump in the pool. I'm going to be raw, and you use your own experiences. So I'm going to do the same and honor the work that you're doing by kind of jumping in the pot and being cooked with you today. And as I hear you talk about the importance of just whole body listening, that's an area that I've struggled with. I am trying to do my best to live out my higher purpose, which is to be a reflection of God's love, grace, and generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And what I struggle with there is I try to listen and find those opportunities to be generous. And I have defined generosity as being able to try to add value, try to always be helpful, try to be useful. And the danger that I see with that is it can create this situation where I start to define now what I think God's generosity is, and that is putting me in this situation where I am starting to determine what's important to people and what's not. And I think that holds me back from the impact that I can have on others, where if I just was able to get to a point where I just show up and listen and whatever comes out is enough, that my presence is there. How did you make that transition to be able to and did you face similar obstacles and trying to be listening with whole body?
I'm just making a few notes. So I want to honor and acknowledge the last question that you asked, which was directed towards me. And the simple answer, because it was framed as a yes or no question, the simple answer is yes. But if you don't mind, I'd like to put that to the side, because what I hear is my new friend Steve offering up a genuine struggle. And I'm organized to hear the struggle, to go there. So with your permission, can we go there?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So what I hear you say is that there's a large amount of self-awareness at this point in your life. I'm imagining that it was something you had to work on, where you can see that with the best of all possible intentions, you want to be in service to, let's say, God's grace, and you want to help. And bless you for holding that as a really important objective. That is not the problem. But I imagine occasionally, Steve, you might be accused of fixing people. Is that right?
Or at least trying to
Or at least trying
fix
to.
it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So welcome to the human race. this is part of the challenge, especially those of us who are socialized the way we're socialized. We're problem solvers. We derive some value out of that process. So let's go there for a moment. How does it make you feel when you successfully help somebody in that way? How does it make you feel?
Yeah, I feel appreciated, certain times validated, accepted, important.
So what am I hearing when I hear that list of adjectives?
I think it's really coming across more as focused on what is it doing for me than what it's doing for the individual.
Yeah,
When I tell myself a story, my
right.
intent is to serve the individual, but it does make me wonder is it really in service of me, or is it genuine? I think that's what I'm learning from you, is to be able to get to a point where you can show up with this whole body listening requires the detachment from the impact that it's having on me as the individual.
Okay, that's right. I'm hearing a little bit more, so I'm going to go one level deeper and hold on to it. As you identify that feeling, what comes up for you in this moment?
I think what comes up for me is curiosity around what's the bigger impact that I could have if I wasn't so attached to adding value.
Great question. Really, really, in all of my work, I refer to this phrase radical self-inquiry. I know it's even in the title here. And that question that you just asked is a great example of radical self-inquiry, right? So if we take a step back and we say, so here's the other thing I heard. I heard a little boy who yearns to be appreciated, who yearns to feel validated. Did that boy used to exist?
I think it still does.
Amen. Amen. So
And I
I'm going to
think
say,
that's I see
yeah,
that as my curriculum, my
yeah,
natural curriculum to address. And
yeah.
I have attempted to do that through various stages of leadership opportunities that I've had the privilege to do, but that work isn't near complete,
Mm.
and it may not ever be completed. But I think you point out so well, I think it was a quote from the Talmud, that it's not my obligation to finish that work, but also I can't ignore it as well. And
Well
that stood
played.
with me.
That's right. That's right. And I'll bring your attention back to another phrase I use. At the closing of my first book, Reboot, the last line is something like, and with that, I mastered the art, not the science, of growing up. I didn't write, and with that, I grew up. So what I'm loving about where you are right now, Steve, is what I'm seeing is that you've got this awareness and appreciation of what's your work to do, and an awareness of the way we might use our organizations to create that sense of appreciation and validation.
Yes.
So instead of being servant leader, we use the organization in service of ourselves. Ooh, not particularly conscious,
Yeah.
right? And so we blow that a kiss. This is a really important moment. What we don't want to do is turn that awareness into a heat-seeking missile of guilt. And the reason I brought your attention back to that little kid is to evoke empathy for yourself. It's okay, man.
Yeah.
It's okay. So in that moment, we see the way we've been complicit. And you smiled when I said blow a kiss. We blow a kiss to that part of ourselves, and we relax, and we realize that we are seeking what I wrote about in Reboot is love, safety, and belonging. That's all. And then, for extra credit, we turn that around and we realize that's what everybody's seeking. What is it that we are called to do? What is our work to do as those who hold power, as those who are privileged to lead? What is our work to do? It's to create the conditions for others to feel love, safety, and belonging.
Yeah.
Not to be fixed, not to be advised, not to be made better, but to call forth the parts of them that are perfectly capable of healing them. So I took us down that particular path. I hope it was okay. When I hear that, it's hard for me not to go into that space.
Well, no, I'm very appreciative that you were so generous to take time not to go into, I'm sure there's lots of stuff that you would love to share personally, but just your willingness to put that aside and say, let me try to open up a different conversation and really help me bring more awareness to the things that I'm working on. And that's truly a gift. And, as I continue to reflect on what you've just shared, here's where it gets even a little bit more messier.
Yeah.
You gave, I think it was in a conversation with Marshall Pollard, you guys were talking about this concept of a candle. And it was that this is my interpretation of the conversation, not necessarily what you were trying to get across, but the way I looked at it was that we are impacted by the darkness of others, and that darkness shows up in our workplace. And as leaders, it's our responsibility to shed light on that darkness. And you give the examples of the candles, and the candles to me was that light comes from that candle. We light that candle by doing the work that's ours to do, not trying to worry, not trying to fix other people, not trying to help them become better human beings. It's we light that our own candles by we have to go back and address some of the things that little boy that needs that validation and figures out that adding value in service of others gives them that. That's the kind of work that we need to do. The beautiful part about that is when you light that candle, the organization starts to have more visibility. The organization starts to see things in the parts of their business that can help them perform better. It brightens up and gives choices and opportunities and capabilities that they didn't see as an organization. Then we turn to, okay, how do you move from, I just don't want my candle to get brighter and brighter and brighter, and I have to light the whole organization. The work that I've got to do next is to turn my candle towards someone else and light their candle. And basically what I interpret that is creating the conditions for them to do their work by myself modeling the work that I'm doing. As long as I'm doing my work, they don't have to spend much time compensating for my deficiencies and leadership gaps. They can now start, and that creates the safety and security that you're talking about that says, well, Steve, as the CEO, is willing to do the work and be vulnerable and share his struggles, I can now start to do mine. And I light their candle and they light another candle. And all of a sudden, these candles are lit. And what you pointed out something I really never thought about, which was when you're lighting someone's candle and you pull yours back, you've given up zero energy in your candle. Your candle is still as bright and powerful as it was, and even though you're sharing more energy. And as I look back, I think, wow, what the potential if the more candles that we light in our organization, the brighter that organization is, and the more that organization can discover its true capacity to elevate humanity, to be able to really make an impact with the platform that they've been blessed with. And I think that, to me, is the opportunity. And what I'm hearing today is I don't light other people's candle by trying to add value. I light other people's candle by going and continue to explore those things in my past that may have not been fully resolved, that are continued to play out in leadership. And so what's got me curious is this, is we explain this, and you beautifully articulated that better humans make better people, better leaders. I think everyone on this call says, of course they do. So why is it that's so easy to understand, but so difficult to show up in the workplace and practice being a better human?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say, go to the head of the class. You've just encapsulated 20 years of my work beautifully. So you've got it. But to your question, it's difficult because doing our own inner work is scary. More importantly, we have often been socialized, starting when we're really little, to either aggressively push away the difficulty or to mask that aggression with a kind of spiritual bypassing of, oh, let me be of service to other people.
Yeah.
And the results are the same. Other people get dropped, right? And, one of the questions that you asked that we didn't circle back to was to ask about full body listening. But you made another point. You talked about modeling. How did it feel when I was listening to you and reflected back to you what I was hearing, not only in your words, but about that little kid? How did that feel to you?
I felt this tingling in my arm, both arms. And I felt this like vibration starting to right around the palm of my hand. And it was literally going up into my elbow and up into the upper parts of my arm. And I was actually paying more attention to the feelings from that question, where I think in the past, that question would have gone right to the, right there. Right there. It's like, I've got to find that answer. And in that moment, I wasn't even looking for the answer. I was just like, wow, that's just, it's tingling. That's an interesting, and just staying with that.
So
and
what
it was
you
somewhat relieving. It was relieving, actually.
right. And if we think about it, what was the content we were talking about was a little boy looking to be appreciated. Can't be appreciated if you're not heard.
Yeah.
And so rather than explaining to you intellectually what it meant, what it means to be in a position to be with somebody and listen with full body awareness, I figured I would just demonstrate it so that you could actually experience it. And I'm just going to acknowledge there's a siren going on outside. I don't know if you can hear that. And
I
You
thought I
know, if
was
we,
being rescued there for a second.
but if we put this into the context of leadership and into the context of business leadership, and the express wish to create to create the conditions for other people to feel heard, to feel safe, to feel appreciated, to feel like they belong. One of the most important things, and you picked up on the metaphor that Marshall and I talked about quite well, I have to do the work on my own candle.
Yeah.
One of the, and I make this point in the new book, Reunion, one of the sources of toxic leadership is that when those of us who hold power, either by dint of the body that we occupy, or the economic status that we have, or our role in a normative structure in a society, you know, men in this way, women, you know, white folks, you know, whatever the identity, when those of us who hold power have a gap in the work that we do, conscious or not, conscious of it or not, we impact those of us around us. I'm sure he's a mutual hero of the two of us, Parker Palmer.
Of course.
So Parker's a dear friend. He wrote the foreword to Reunion. Parker likes to say, the unexamined life may not be worth living, but if you choose to not live an examined life, please don't take a job that involves other people. And what he's joking about is the impact that we have when our candle is dark, when our candle remains unlit, and then we use force of will to try to raise consciousness within an organization. Oh, no, 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 no. What we both experienced, and I know we want to open it up to other folks, what we both experienced is that when those of us who have power, and you and I had the spotlight on us, so we had power, when we're willing to go first, we start the first candle.
Nice.
So thank you for that. And thank you for allowing me to do what I was put on this earth to do. I really appreciate that.
Well, I tell you, thank you for giving me the gift of your wisdom.
Jerry and Steve, this conversation has been incredible. And it's one of those situations, and I think that this is happening to the audience as well, that your conversation is showing up at a moment that I need it. So I'm just appreciating the authenticity and the depth of it. Thank you so much. But before we go to Q&A, I'd like to ask each of you to offer the audience a couple tactical takeaways. It's something that we try to provide to everybody who comes to a Conscious Capitalism event, so they can take it back to their organization. So we'll open up to questions, and first I'll let you both offer the audience a couple tactical takeaways.
All right, Steve, you go first.
You know,
he's a pro at this.
well, here's what I find difficult about this is I'm asking to give advice to people who I have no context whatsoever about their situation. All I can say is it worked for me, so it must be good for you, and that's not true. And so I'll share this, and instead of giving advice, I will share with what has awoken for me on this conversation with Jerry in the last few minutes, is that there is an appreciation for how difficult this work is. And I asked Jerry the question of, why aren't more leaders doing it? And I'm answering my own question, and it's really really awoken me to, I've got to lean into this even more than what I'm doing, and what I'm telling myself that I'm doing this work requires a commitment at even a greater level. So I'm most appreciative of the gift that Jerry gave me to continue to go deeper on this. You are just hitting the surface level, and I think we all have that opportunity to go deep in our own journey.
I'm so glad I asked you to go first. Not only because it bought me some time, but you actually modeled something, and I want to lift this up. Let's imagine, everybody who's on this call, let's imagine for a moment that Steve was our CEO. How do you feel in this moment about the possibility of being led by Steve? Because I don't know about you, but sign me up. Not
Wow.
because he had any direct answers, but because he did probably the most practical, tactical, important thing a leader can do. He showed up. He was real. You know, people will say, well, what, Jerry, you can be a little bit different than the average sage on the stage. You know what I show up as? Me. Me. So if you want one takeaway, show up for your life. You've only got this one. And don't be so afraid of showing up and feeling and being inadequate to the task that you've projected into this role that you hold on to. Show up and be yourself. And just like we're responding with, yeah, I'll go work for Steve, people will say, yeah, I want to work with that person because they're real. So,
Well, thank you for
how's that?
let me go first, so I didn't have to follow that.
Well, I can tell you that working for Steve, beautiful, hopeful, inspired, powerful, ready to go on the journey, grounded and authentic. Sign me up.
Look at that. Look at your 360, Steve.
I'm done.
Right. We do have time for a few questions or a couple questions. So let me get to them. This is from an anonymous attendee. I'm faced with the challenge to convince my boss to adopt a more conscious leadership style. I would like him to think more of the needs of the people and adapt it to let people thrive in an organization. How could I move him to see that the impact he's having is making people sick and letting his business fail? How to help him to want to take the journey to a more conscious leadership?
So, dear Anonymous, I just want you to know I hear the situation that you're in, and I'm projecting into it. I could be wrong, but I'm projecting into it that there's an altered or a power differential. Because you use the word, I think you use the word, my boss. And that is a very, very difficult position to be in. It's a very, very difficult position to be in. And, if we identify as women, if we identify as people of color, the power dynamic can be especially challenging given where we are. And there's nothing I can say to make that go away as a challenge. So I do want you to know that I hear that, importantly. And this is a really common problem. When we sign up to do work within an organization at Reboot, it's very, very rare that we will sign up to do any organizational work if those who hold the most power aren't willing to do the work themselves.
Well said.
Because what ends up happening is it's at best performative and at worst distrustful. Because when people mouth aspirational values but do not live them, it is incredibly painful. The best advice I can give you, Anonymous, is try not to internalize their challenges as your challenges. To the best degree possible, try not to take responsibility for their unfinished work. Hold yourself steady and safe as possible. Find your allies. Have lunch with them on a regular basis. And hold yourself safe. Look, there's a consciousness movement out there, and we're all part of that. And our work will not be done in my lifetime. But I will not give up trying. So you have allies even outside the organization in these places. I hope that was helpful.
Oh, you know, we often say in conscious capitalism that leadership is an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
And it, you know, just reminds me of the light the candle, but I'm impressed with Anonymous's willingness to be here to continue to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, and Anonymous is, yes, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Beatty says, I've been struggling with anxiety before doing speaking engagements and been having a hard time getting to the root of it. I would appreciate suggestions for self-inquiry to find the root of the issue.
Well, Steve made a point earlier about not knowing the specific details. So with your permission, I'll make up a story, which I know, and it comes empathetically from the days in which I would struggle with these sorts of things. I would see myself as having to do something, having to create, say, an experience for somebody, and that somehow that I would fail if I wouldn't do that. So I'm going to tell a quick little story that I've never told before. Okay. When I first started coaching, I started doing workshops, and I was invited to, I designed a workshop and I offered it for free because I wanted to test some theories out. And I was so anxious that I pulled a stack of about 10 books, all of which I was somehow going to reference as the workshop was going in. I had all these index cards and all this stuff. And it was early on a Saturday morning, and I put the books in a paper bag and I took a cab to the venue, and cab stopped. I got out and I left the books. So I was freaked out. So I walk into the event and there's a room full of 30 people waiting for me to be wise. Okay. And sweat is pouring down my face because, you know, my crutch was gone. And I had this moment and I said, I can pretend that this isn't happening, or I can actually be real. And that's the moment where the guy that you're seeing right now, who's kind of real, started showing up. I sat down, I told everybody the story. They all laughed with love, and it was okay. So that's a long-winded way. I think you said it was Lisa, Karen, right? That I'm talking to. It's a long-winded way of saying, Lisa, blow yourself a kiss. Understand that people want to connect with people. People do not want to connect with perfection. And all you have to be is you. Because just as you are enough.
Wow. I'm sorry to say that we're at time. I wish we had another 90 minutes. I could use it. I think we could all use it. So you
Let's
said,
do part 2.
thank you so much for joining us. If I could, Jerry, you said that you could make people cry. Well, like I'm starting to get teary. So So really, really moving. Thank you so much, Jerry and
Mm.
Steve. We appreciate you. This has been wonderfully insightful, informative, and actionable. To our attendees, we appreciate you spending your time with us. Okay, so Jerry and Steve, where can people find out more about each of you? I think
Steve,
that
you go
Michael's
first.
going to put it into the chat, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm not on social media, and I am not
Wise man.
not actively in business, seeking business. I'm just spending my time with a few organizations like Conscious Capitalism, YPO, and my foundation. So the best way to connect with me is probably email at steve.hall@consciouscapitalism.org.
Thank you.
Hey. And you can find out all things with me. Just follow the link to reunion.reboot.io. That's for the new book, but it links back to the company and you'll find all the information in there. And seriously, thank you all. I feel like I found the other Avengers who are out there fighting the good fight. And I really appreciate all the work that all of you are doing. This is about creating a better world for our children and grandchildren. And so what we do matters. And look, Matt McCall says hi. Hey, Matt, how you doing? It's an old friend.
So for all of you, please take 30 seconds to fill out a survey in the chat box to help us plan for future programming. You'll see the link there. And if you're new to Conscious Capitalism, please visit consciouscapitalism.org for more information about our movement and the organization. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy your week.